Chair, we're live. Oh, you got to pull your mic.
That was a practice run. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Napa County Board of Supervisors regular meeting of November 12th, 2024. May I have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Cottrell,
Here.
Supervisor Ramos,
Here.
Supervisor Berryessa,
Here.
Supervisor Gregory,
Here.
Chair Gallagher.
Here.
It was not planned, but you joined us too.
Okay, let's go into here. Okay, I'm going to announce that the Sheriff's Office Honor Guard is going to present the colors and the national anthem.
Mark. Deep. Up. Left. Face. Present. Total. Order. Total. Post. Detail. Left. Face. Forward. March. Mark time. March. Detail. Up. Right. Face. Order. Dismiss.
If you are able to stand, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on with our agenda, and we will. We're going to do Pet of the Week now.
Okay.
But you're welcome to stay here and play with our pet. So, where is Katie? Hi, Katie. Katie and Kelly are here with
Billy the kid.
Billy the Kid. Wow, what a name.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Kelly. I am an animal attendant at this shelter, and I'm filling in for Luis today. So today we have Billy the Kid. He is a pit mix, about 1 year old approximately. He was brought to us by Animal Control on October 28th, and he was a stray found within the Napa city limits. He is super, super smart, super sweet. Everybody that he said hi to today has just loved him. He has loved everybody. He does good with other dogs, and he would be a great hiking partner, running partner, cuddle partner. He is just a great overall package.
Great, thank you so much. And if you come down to the shelter this week, we're happy to waive the fees to adopt Billy the Kid. And at least come and give him a visit. He probably has some good stories to tell. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I am going to call an item out of order. We are now going to go to item 11A, and I'd like to introduce Christine Briseño, our HR director, who will introduce the item. Thank
morning.
you. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning, supervisors and community members, and to our veterans who are with us today. I am very honored, in honor of Veterans Day, I'm excited to bring this item to you, and it is a new partnership with the Army, and it's called a PACE program. And I'm very excited to introduce Captain Allison, who's going to get our program started.
Okay, thank you, Director Briseño. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the U.S. Army's Partnership for Success PACE ceremony today. The U.S. Army PACE program is a strategic partnership between the U.S. Army and a cross-section of private industry, academia, businesses to include federal, state, and local agencies. The U.S. Army PACE program guarantees soldiers and ROTC cadets 5 job interviews and possible employment after their service in the United States Army. Today's partnership memorandum of agreement between the U.S. Army and Napa County will be signed by Lieutenant Colonel Christopher J. Sadowski, Commander of the Northern California Recruiting Battalion, and Director Briseño, Director of Human Resources here in Napa County. At this time, we will have Lieutenant Colonel Sadowski and Director Briseño take a seat at the table. Lieutenant Colonel Sadowski is the Northern California Recruiting Battalion Commander and has been in position since June of 2024. He has served in the Army for over 20 years as a logistics officer with assignments in Germany, Spain, Washington, Southern California, and Dublin, California, with combat deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan. Prior to his current assignment, Lieutenant Colonel Sadowski was assigned to the Defense Coordinating Element located in Oakland, California, and helped coordinate military support for natural disasters to include COVID, wildfires, and flooding. Now I would like to introduce you to the Northern California Recruiting Battalion Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Sadowski.
Good morning, distinguished guests, friends, and supporters of the United States Army. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Sadowski, Battalion Commander for the Northern California Recruiting Battalion. On behalf of the U.S. Army and our Command Sergeant Major Darren Caldwell sitting in the back there, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to all of you for being here today and attending this event Today, we gather to celebrate a powerful partnership forged between the indomitable spirit of our armed forces and the unwavering commitment of Napa County. This collaboration is not just a union of organizations, but a testament to the values we both hold dear: service, dedication, and diversity. Three things at the center of everything our organizations do. Our armed forces stand as a guardian to our nation's ideals, embodying courage in the face of adversity and resilience in times of change. Each member represents the very best of our country, committed to protecting and defending our freedoms at home and abroad. Their sacrifice and valor inspire us all. Together, the partnership between the U.S. Army and Napa County is more than a collaboration. It is a force multiplier for good. This amplifies our ability to serve not only our country, but also our communities. Through this alliance, we strengthen our resolve to uphold the principles of equality and opportunity for all. This partnership is not just about business or service contracts. It is about mutual respect and shared values. Our North Bay Recruiting Company enlisted 224 soldiers into our Army last year. The soldiers we enlisted are serving both on active duty and in the reserves. It is a source of pride that the Army returns to our communities people of leadership, dedication, and a commitment to service. To Napa County, the officers and non-commissioned officers of North Bay Company, the Sergeant Major and I salute your commitment, your courage, and your unwavering dedication. This partnership will signify to both of our communities the importance of leadership and service. Thank you.
Mr. Del Pratt is the Napa County Veteran Services Officer, known as the CVSO, who connects veterans and their family members to veterans' benefits. Mr. Del Pratt was promoted to this position in December of 2019, after serving 2 years as a Napa County Veterans Services Representative. Del served over 30 years in the United States Air Force, retiring as a Chief Master Sergeant. He is a veteran of the Gulf War and numerous deployments. In his current role, serving the most recent fiscal year, Del led a team of 3 in filing 1,694 disability compensation, pension, and education fee waiver claims. The team's efforts resulted in more than $8 million awarded to veterans and their family members. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you Mr. Del Pratt.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to kind of bring the Napa County veterans perspective to this great partnership. Being in my position, in my role, I meet family members, active duty, retired, maybe they served 2 years, maybe they served 30. And they typically will ask me, what's going on with the active military today? A partnership like this will allow us to have one more kind of tool in our toolkit to kind of encourage our community members to join. Even just I'm Air Force, we were kind of part of the Army, but it's still a brilliant partnership. And we don't mind encouraging our community members to join the Army. We think me personally, I think the active military, including the Reserve and National Guard components, it could really be a cheat code for life. I mean, statistics show that veterans that are connected to their VA benefits just have better life outcomes. I think communities that are connected to their Army have better community outcomes. So on behalf of Napa County Veterans and the Napa County Veterans Commission, I just want to say thank you, and we look forward to this partnership.
We are now going to sign the memorandum of agreement that solidifies our partnership with Napa County. Lieutenant Colonel Sadowski will also present a certificate of participation and plaque to Napa County on behalf of the United States Army PAYS program. Yeah, go ahead and sign. And then we've got the plaque here.
Can we invite the board to take a photo?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, Director Briseño will now provide her closing remarks.
Thank you so much for your time and indulgence. This is an incredible honor, and I'm very excited to share. And as your HR director for the county, hiring veterans can bring numerous benefits to our organization, including strong work ethic, leadership experience, adaptability, and specialized training. Veterans are known for their teamwork and collaboration skills, as well as their strong moral compass and adherence to values, all things that we as local government employees value and partner as well. And we continue to ensure continuity of service to our community of Napa County. In honor of Veterans Day, thank you for your service. And for all those who choose Napa County, thank you for continuing the answer to public service. And with that, I would invite any community members here who would like to join us across the hall at our county council conference room, where we'll have coffee and refreshments and opportunities for photos with our esteemed guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And I'd like to see if there's any public comment. Anyone want to speak? Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm very excited to see this partnership come to fruition and look forward to seeing many more veterans join our county family. So thank you. Anyone else on the board like to make a comment? Okay. All right, well, thank you, Christine, and thank you so much to our representatives from the Army for being here today and memorializing the agreement. Thank you. Okay, we are going to continue with our agenda, which puts us at number 5, the consent calendar for special districts. Do I have any public comment on those? All right, I'll bring it to the board for a motion. You?
Second.
Motion by Pedrosa, second by Cottrell. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will now move to our consent calendar, 6A through P. Does anyone have any comments from the public on our consent calendar? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Do I have a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Second. All right, motion by Cottrell, second by Ramos. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you so much. All right, now we are on to general public comment. So anyone who would like to make a public comment on anything not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the board, please feel free to come forward to the podium. All right, anyone on the phone?
Yes, we have Chris Malin.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. One moment while I pull up the call. Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Hopefully I won't create feedback. I muted my Zoom, but let me know if I need to turn it off. I don't want to disrupt your meeting. Chris Malin, I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Conservation Advocacy, Research, and Education. And our nonprofit has been in existence since 2004, and we've done long-term biological monitoring of the Napa River since then. I am wondering how I can plan to be before the Groundwater Sustainable Agency, which you're all, you do service that duty as well. You are the Napa County Groundwater Sustainable Agency. And I don't understand how you schedule your meetings, when you schedule them, how to plan for that. This is an extremely important duty and responsibility that you have to manage Napa County's groundwater. And I just don't see it come up in front of the public very often. And then there's very important issues going on with the Napa River being dewatered severely this year, even though we had rain into June, and we had flows into June. And large sections of the Napa River have been dewatered. And groundwater pumping has a big impact on the dewatering. I personally hiked from the library to Zinfandel on a dry riverbed. It was devastating. And I think that the Groundwater Sustainable Agency should be convening and talking about the destruction of our most precious resource in Napa County, the Napa River. And there's little to no talk about this. And it is your responsibility to do something about it. The Groundwater Sustainability Plan, in there is a trigger for regulatory tools to step in when dewatering happens, but you haven't done that. And let's just keep in mind what is lost when a river is dewatered. It's a killing of all living things in the river. And it's a killing of all the terrestrial animals that depend upon the water in the river. And it puts communities at risk because when it's being dewatered, the water quality plummets, and freshwater harmful algae sets in, and that can kill animals and it can kill people. And I personally know of one incident where somebody got sick from doing ceremony in the river when it was getting dry, and this was in October. And this is a member of the Wapello, the Mishawa Wapo of Alexander Valley, who are the native people of Napa County. And they went there to do ceremony, and they got in the river, and they got sick. They got rash, they got problems.
Chris, could you wrap up, please?
Yeah, so maybe we pay little, we make more time for the Napa River. We seem to make time for Pets of the Week, but we can't make time for a dying river. So I'm asking what kinds of steps the board can take and should be responsive and protective to this important community need. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Ms. Hoskins, anything else? Okay, thank you. We are going to go ahead and move to Board of Supervisors reports and announcements. I have a few things today, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started while my colleagues get their thoughts together. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to our elections team. I don't know if Mr. Tudor's in the house today, but wanted to say that our team, led by Mr. Tudor, faithfully served our community and conducted our count with integrity and efficiency, and thank you so much to that team. I know they worked really hard to get the work done and get the results out as soon as possible, so wanted to say thank you for that. So a few other things. I'd like to ask our CEO's office to, over the next month or so, work with each of our departments and put together a countywide summary of federal funds that we receive and those that may be at risk based on our experiences here in the county between 2017 and 2020. I'd also like the board to update our immigration proclamation that was issued in 2017. And this time I'd like to see it include all marginalized populations that may be at risk. Again, based on our experience between 2017 and 2020. I'd like to also suggest to my colleagues that we think about creating an ad hoc committee of the board to work with our CEO and our department heads to respond to any executive orders or other legislation that may impact our civil liberties, reproductive rights, immigrant protections, and climate action. I know that the state generally has jurisdiction over many of these issues, but I'd like to be able to assure our community that we are proactive and that we will take action as we see fit. I don't believe we need to do a wait and see attitude, as we have concrete experience stemming from the federal administration in, again, 2017 through 2020. As a county, we need to be watching not only for civil rights actions, but, for example, any efforts to politicize grant programs to commandeer state and local governmental resources for federal purposes. I also believe that as a board, we need to state our support and encourage our departments to collaborate with community-based organizations to, again, protect marginalized communities. And that's what I'd like to say for today. And does anyone else have any reports or announcements? I see Supervisor Gregory.
Thank you. I sit on the State Route 37 Policy Committee on behalf of the county and NVTA. We had our meeting last week and got some updates on this project, which is gigantic and will take a long, long time. But there's some good news that we just recently reprioritized the projects in terms of the order they'll go in. First will be this section closest to Novato, including a big bridge over Novato Creek. It got some of that federal infrastructure investment money. So that's going to be first. But second is the stretch from Mare Island to Sears Point and the intersection of 121 and 37. So that's the second priority. Can't tell you when that'll happen, but it's good to know it's second out of about 8 or 9 projects. So just thought I'd share that with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Cottrell.
Thank you. Yeah, I had 3 things I wanted to report on. We, on Thursday, had a ribbon cutting out at Childs Pope Valley Bridge, and I wanted to say congratulations and thank you to Director Lederer and everyone in the Public Works Department. It was a good afternoon to open that bridge again, and the new structure is an incredible improvement over what was there before, so thank you for that. I held a community meeting with Congressman Thompson on Thursday. We called it a post-election debrief, and our new state senator-elect Christopher Cabaldon stopped by too, so I'm grateful that we've got partners at the state level and the federal level who are listening to the community and thinking about how we move forward together. And then finally, up in Angwin, there was a lot happening on Sunday. There was a pancake breakfast at the new Angwin Fire Station. There was a great turnout there. And there was also quite a bit of pile burning in Las Posadas Forest. So I wanted to say I'm grateful to Napa County Fire Department and CAL FIRE for watching the weather closely and getting in that window before the rain hit. So there were quite a few successful pile burns happening as well. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other lights, so we will move on.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Hi, I was just talking with our county council, and I was wondering if we could get your board support for bringing back, so to the chairwoman's referral to me, bring back an item at a subsequent meeting, in our next meeting, if not that, the meeting after, that outlines the scope of work that you're wanting us to undertake, as well as allowing your board to make a selection in creating a committee of some sort to kind of oversee that scope of work, and to have your board vote on that. And is that okay with everybody? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. We are now going to move on to, let's see, we have no administrative items, so we will go to 11. We have already handled 11A. We will go to 11B, which is consideration and adoption of a resolution of findings of fact and decision on appeal regarding an appeal filed by appellant John Murphy on behalf of Preserve Lodi Lane concerning the Napa County Planning Commission's decision on May 3rd, 2023 to approve the Duckhorn Vineyards Winery Use Permit Major Modification, application number P19-00097-mod, and adopt mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And Mr. Hawks, and is that someone from County Council showing up? Ah, there she is. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
I was ready to go.
All right, Mr. Hawks and Ms. Anderson, thank you so much, and please go ahead and make your report.
Good morning. The item before you today is a resolution of findings and fact, and this is the final step in the Duckhorn appeal. It reflects the tentative action you took on August 20th and includes revised conditions of approval. The public hearing is closed, so comments are limited simply to whether or not the findings accurately reflect the board's intent. And we would recommend the board adopt it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and go to public comment and see if anyone has public comment on the findings of fact. And do I have anything on the phone? All right, great. Then I will go ahead and bring it back to the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ramos, a second by Gregory. All those in favor, please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, and thank you to both of you. All right, we are going to move on to 11C. We will be receiving a presentation from Napa Sanitation District regarding the recent Napa Purified Water Feasibility Study and other district project updates. Mr. Damron, hello.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Do I have slides? I can present from wherever.
Wherever you are comfortable is fine with us.
Thank you. Morning, Supervisors. My name is Andrew Damron. I'm the General Manager at Napa Sanitation District. I've been at Napa Sanitation District almost 15 years. I've been the General Manager since January. All right, we're live. All right, good. Some basics about Napa Sanitation District. We were founded in 1945 to treat an unwanted waste product, but over the last 3 decades, we've transformed into a resource recovery agency, harvesting the value out of the wastewater we receive from our service area of over 83,000 residents and businesses. We average about 8 million gallons of wastewater into our facility daily and manage a distribution system of recycled water mains as well as the collection system of wastewater pipes. We have 2 distinct service areas. The green area represents our sewer service area, which is essentially the city of Napa city limits plus the Silverado area and the airport area industrial parks. The purple shading is our recycled water distribution area, which includes irrigation of vineyards, golf courses, parks, schools, cemeteries, and annually we treat and distribute about 1 billion gallons of recycled water for beneficial reuse. The recycled water is tertiary treated and meets all the state requirements for unrestricted irrigation use. It can be used to irrigate crops like grapes, but also food crops where irrigation water comes into contact with the parts of the produce that's consumed, like strawberries or lettuce. Napa Sands recycled water can be used for everything but drinking. We provide wastewater services, recycled water distribution, and we also have a biosolids program that's envied by most of our peer agencies in the Bay Area. I'm not going to get into our biosolids program today, but I can talk forever about poop if that's of interest. Also, what's not on this slide is our electricity self-generation program, which I'll go into detail at the end of the presentation. I've been asked today to speak about our purified water feasibility study, or potable reuse study. This is a study to evaluate project options to treat wastewater to drinking water levels. So this would be an additional level of treatment past what we're currently doing today for our irrigation customers. It was a goal that was identified by Napa Sands Board of Directors in our 2023 strategic plan, And it was also part of a study that was recommended by Napa County's Drought Contingency Plan, or the DCP, which was a partnership of all the water agencies in Napa County and was partially funded by the Bureau of Reclamation. And the potable reuse study, or looking at potable reuse, treatment of wastewater for drinking water levels, was identified in the DCP, the Drought Contingency Plan, as a potential new source of water for Napa County. We began the study in February of 23. We hired an engineering firm, Curl Engineers, who performed the work, the analysis for us. And it was a partnership between Napa Sanitation District and the City of Napa Water Division. This program, if this was to move forward, would need to be a partnership between those two agencies, and we split the costs of the study. So the study looked at a number of different areas, and I'm going to go through those one at a time. The first one is source water flows. So is there enough volume available to make a project make sense? We looked at wet season flows as well as dry season flows. And there's a definite difference between those for us because a lot of our dry season flow, the wastewater we get into our treatment plant in the dry season, is already being used for irrigation to our 250 plus irrigation customers. We also looked at stormwater flow, so the ability to take stormwater into the sewer collection system, which right now we try to avoid at all costs. To take stormwater into the sewer collection system for the purpose of using that water to create additional water supplies. The part of the stormwater that was the most interesting to us was the stormwater that's in the stormwater system during the dry season. And it can be referred to as, which I thought was funny, as urban drool. And it's always in the system, like runoff from irrigation or car washing or groundwater infiltration into the stormwater system. That water has a lot of value at the time of year we could harvest it. So we looked into that too. We looked at source water quality. Does the wastewater that Napa San receives from our community have the right quality to be treated for potable use? And we determined that it does. The water quality characteristics need to be considered to influence the design of the future system. We looked at the regulatory requirements. The state of California recently adopted the new requirements, treatment requirements for potable reuse in December of 2023. The treatment requirements are extensive, require a lot of monitoring, and that really influenced the feasibility of a project like this for Napa. The new requirements for treatment also require 24/7 staffing for the first 12 months of operation, which is an incredible operating cost for a project like this. We looked at lots of different alternatives. So there were about 8 of them, 8 different alternatives. So we looked at 3 different sizes. We looked at a treatment system that could treat 1.8 million gallons a day, 6 million gallons a day, or 10 million gallons a day. And those were drastically different. The 10 million gallons a day would not be used at full capacity very often. And then alternatively, like the 1.8 million gallon per day option could be used more often, like 90% of the time. One would be able to, the 10 million gallon per day option would be able to produce more water annually, but comes at a much higher capital cost. We looked at alternatives 1 through 3, evaluated what we would call treated water augmentation. So we would treat the water to the highest level, meeting all the state's requirements, and the water could be injected directly into the City of Napa's distribution system. alternatives 4 through 6 were raw water augmentation, which means we would treat the water using the same requirements, and then instead of injecting it into the city of Napa's potable system, it would be pumped up the hill and blended with the raw water source at the city of Napa's treatment plant. And then alternative 7 and 8 would be to send tertiary treated recycled water, which is the irrigation quality water that we produce, up the hill to the city of Napa's potable treatment plant, and then go through the advanced treatment requirements per the state for potable standards, and then blend that water in with the raw water source from the city of Napa and run it through the standard drinking water treatment plant. Each of those different options requires different levels of infrastructure and different levels of costs, and how each one of them has different benefits and drawbacks. We also looked at residual management, and this plays into it as well, because one of the treatment processes is reverse osmosis, and that creates what's called ROC, or reverse osmosis concentrate. So it's the portion of the water that doesn't go through the membrane. That portion of water is high in salts and metals, and that needs to be disposed of somewhere. And so some of the options that studied the placement of this new treatment plant at Napa Sand benefited from the fact that that reverse osmosis concentrate could be discharged with Napa Sand's wastewater discharge to the river in the wintertime. We looked at government's frameworks, looked at different options for coordination between two agencies to plan, construct, and operate a very complex program. So we looked at contract operations, and we looked at JPAs. And the study also looked at implementation timeline. When Napa is ready for this project, how do we proceed? And the study recommended a pilot or demonstration project that could be planned, designed, and built within about a 4-year period, which could be used as an education tool for our community and a proof of concept. Does this program or does this infrastructure adequately treat water to drinking level standards? The study concluded that a project is technically feasible, but unfortunately not cost effective at this time. The capital plus operating costs of a project like this resulted in water that was 2 to 4 times as expensive as drinking water in the city of Napa now. But even though it's not cost effective at this time, the project did identify steps we could take in the meantime. Monitor costs of alternative water supplies, and when these projects have been implemented in other communities, they've typically been done when there aren't alternative water sources. So we're going to continue to monitor that with our partners at the city of Napa. We're going to monitor the regulatory requirements. Do these requirements, are they too robust? Are they going to change over time? And if so, how does that affect the cost and feasibility of this project? We're going to look and see what other agencies do, and we're going to continue to evaluate stormwater augmentation for the benefit of potable reuse and to provide additional water supplies for our irrigation customers. I do want to take a few minutes of your time to talk about Napa Sand's energy self-production program. This is a slightly different topic. So about 20 years ago, Napa Sand built an anaerobic digester and installed a cogeneration engine, which is the engine in the picture. Anaerobic digestion is the treatment of wastewater solids, and it does result in the production of methane, and the methane has a lot of value to us. So we burn that methane in the cogeneration engine and the new engine we have on site, and that produces electricity. Since 2001, this engine's been producing about 40% of the electricity that we use on site. About 10 years ago, we put in a fog receiving station, which is fats, oils, and grease from area restaurants, and that blended with wastewater solids has the ability to produce more methane. In 2016, we installed a 1 megawatt solar array. It's a power purchase agreement with the installer. It generates about 10% of the electricity we need on site, bringing our on-site generation total to about 50%. And what we're most excited about recently is the installation of a linear generator on site. It's more efficient than our existing engine. The biogas from our anaerobic digester goes into the unit, electricity comes out. Because it's not a combustion reaction, it decreases emissions. It allows us to accept more high-strength waste like restaurant fog, and can bring our energy self-generation to about 65% of the power that we need on site. And we still have work to do. 65% is where we're at today, but if we want to increase that, there are options for us. So we are partnering with a private company, Cielaterre, also known as Electricity, to install a 20 megawatt solar array on our ponds. This project has lots of benefits for us. One, generates lease revenue, which is non-rate revenue for us, which allows us to partially fund our low-income sewer rate program. We can't use rate revenue from other customers to subsidize the rates of low-income residents, so we can use non-rate revenue for that, which lease revenue provides that option for us. It also decreases evaporation on our ponds, which provides more water, irrigation water, to our irrigation customers. The decrease in evaporation also keeps the salt levels low in the water that we draw from the ponds during the irrigation season. And because it inhibits algae growth as the ponds are covered, the cost of treatment of the water that comes from our ponds through our treatment plant is lower. We are working on projects to be able to use some of this power on site to further draw down the energy that we have to purchase from PG&E. That was a lot of information. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we go to public comment, does anyone on the board have any clarifying questions? Okay, let's first go to public comment. Does anyone have any public comment on this item? Anything on the phone? Okay, we'll bring back to the board. Supervisor Gregory.
Thank you. Just a few comments, and I will have a question for you, Mr. Dameron. Thanks to the leadership of Napa San and City of Napa to take this on. We were one of the first agencies to really dive into testing this in our community and answering some big questions. And it got the attention of a lot of our colleagues around the Bay Area. So congrats on that. My takeaway, as we dove in a lot deeper than we just did at our Napa San board meetings, is it's really expensive, as you've highlighted, Andrew, but also a pretty small amount of water that we'd be adding after all that effort, and probably the most expensive water we could possibly produce. So we just need to think harder about whether that's appropriate down the road, I think. So the question is, I know this is one of the featured measures in the DCP. And I understand that's a multi-jurisdictional sort of group that oversees the DCP, and maybe this is for Mr. Letter too, but has the DCP been adjusted to reflect what we know now about potable reuse?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't revisited the recommendations of the DCP to see what's next.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
It's not urgent, but it does make sense to capture what we know now in the DCP as it moves forward in some form.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Pedroza.
Thank you, Chair. And Andrew, thank you for your presentation. And I don't have the knowledge that Supervisor Gregory has, but I often get a lot of questions about, using more recycled water. And to me, it's simple. You have inputs where you need capacity, and then you have outputs, right? So what I understood is, do we need more inputs to create more outputs, or what am I missing? Because when we talk about cost, it's at a point in time. It may not make sense at this moment in time, but I do think having an ability to grow our output of recycled water, given the amount of regulation that is happening around water use, I think it's very beneficial to explore this. So again, just going back to basics, is it more inputs that creates more outputs, or what's the issue?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we struggle with that every day, right? So we've been trying to be like weather experts also, because inputs and outputs are also influenced by weather. And so our irrigation customers, our Title 22 purple pipe recycled water is limited by inputs, because irrigation water typically is only used 9 months a year, but a lot of that water is focused on the hotter, drier months in the summer. And so we're limited on the amount of water we can recycle based on the water we're getting into the treatment plant plus the water we can store. So if we could store more water, which has a very high price tag as well, then we could irrigate more water. But on the potable side, it's more a function of output, right? We don't have the treatment process to do it. There's water available in the winter. We get about 2 billion gallons of water, and we recycle about 1 billion, and we discharge the river about 1 billion. So the potable reuse study, we don't have irrigation demand for that 1 billion gallons, but if we were able to recycle it for drinking water levels, there's a place to put that water as opposed to discharging it to the river. So that's more about having the treatment capacity necessary to do that work.
Yeah, and I just think you hit it on the head, right? It's that choke point in the summer when there's more demand, maybe, that we reach our carrying capacity, but there is a demand. And just anyone that drives around town and we see the water trucks filling up at, I think traditionally the city's selling water outside rates and making money on that. Here's an opportunity. So I do think it is worthwhile exploring and not monetizing it based off today, but of what would it cost to increase carrying capacity that allows us to have more output. And again, I think it's something that it's worth exploring and seeing that, because again, the amount of limitations that are being imposed on whether you're ag or residential, it's not going to get better in the future. That's just my prediction. I may be wrong. So I think you offer a service that's very valuable. So just want to say thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Supervisor Cottrell.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of comments and then a question. First of all, I agree, Supervisor Pedrosa, to think about it as just what we're hearing. It's not cost effective now, but potential future planning. And I know that's what is happening. Also want to say thank you to Supervisor Gregory for all your work on Napa Sand. I hope that you will feel free to come back as a public member and attend those meetings, because I think you have a lot of expertise that's really helpful. So if I can invite you there. And then second, also wanted to say I sit on the Drought and Water Shortage Task Force and the Ad Hoc Committee. So I think having the dialogue between what you're saying, which is, yes, we're looking at the potable water question as the DCP, as the Drought Conservation Plan or Contingency Plan asks, and we have data that says it's actually not one of the workable solutions at this point. I think getting that back into the loop and all the pieces of that will be helpful. I also wanted to call out and comment on the fact that Mr. Dameron said methane has a lot of value to us, which I think is a great future-looking way that we need to understand methane. We spend a lot of time up here in various committees saying, what are we going to do with all the methane out there? And here you're saying, we can find value for it. So I think that's an important thing to note. And then I also wanted to share with my colleagues, Mr. Dameron is going to be hosting a tour of the facility on Thursday with various rural county representative staff from RCRC, because what you're doing, and Supervisor Gregory called this out, is a great example of what other jurisdictions could be doing, particularly ag jurisdictions, particularly dairy operators and things like that. So thank you for that. My question is, are there other examples of public or municipal purified water use? That's one question. And then when you talk about the costs, it sounds like the staffing cost is significant, but is the majority of the cost in the new technology or in the infrastructure?
Yeah, great questions. The costs fall on both, right? The new infrastructure that's required, new pipelines, new treatment processes, brand new facilities where facilities don't exist. So the capital cost is very high, but then the operating cost is high as well, right? Additional staff that doesn't exist. I mean, there are certifications that are required to run a facility like this that we don't have, and the city of Napa doesn't have either. And those staffing requirements run around the clock compared to like what we're doing today, which is staffing our facility 8 hours a day instead of 24 hours a day. So it is both. And then your other question about examples, yes, there are other agencies that are ahead of us on this. So it's like Silicon Valley Clean Water and Orange County. Both those agencies have demonstration facilities already, and they're producing water that meets the current state standards. They're producing that water and then irrigating with it because they're not there yet for indirect potable reuse. But yeah, we've been there to those facilities. I've been at conferences where they bring bottled water. They bring bottled water from these demonstration facilities and pass it out to hundreds of wastewater and recycled water experts like myself, and it's funny to watch nobody drink it. So one of the challenges that we have, and one of the benefits of a demonstration facility, is to gain public acceptance of a program like this.
Yeah, that's great. And my final question is, maybe as you attend those conferences and learn from what your colleagues are doing, that you can come back to our board and report, because it's also a place where we can advocate, for, is it really required to have that extensive staffing, or, what are best practices that then we can tell our state legislators, here's where we need to get this program so that it can be more available. So thanks.
Thank you. Just to piggyback on Supervisor Cottrell, I think my question was, what would have to happen to bring the cost down? So I guess, continuing to take a look at what others are doing and what their strategies are, and what we may need to do, for example, at the state level to bring the costs down so that, these are things that could happen more often, more quickly.
Yeah. This was the first study that was prepared in the state that looked at the new requirements, the state's new requirements from 2023. And our consultant gave a presentation at the California Water Reuse Association's annual conference. And the topic was, hey, we did the study, but all these treatment requirements cost a lot of money. And so we've started that conversation. We'll see where that goes with other agencies and with state officials. And over time, maybe that changes as there's more confidence in the treatment process and there's more acceptance from the general public about water that's coming from this source. So we need to keep watching it.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for everything you're doing at Napa San. Just wonderful work, and we're all very proud and honored to have such a great agency. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
Happy to be here. Mr. Lederer, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, Steve Lederer, Public Works Director. I just wanted to respond to Supervisor Gregory's comments about the drought contingency plan. I will check that. The plan was created by a grant from DWR, and I don't remember offhand what the review period of that is, but I'll check on that and get back to you. I also just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Napa San. They've been great partners to the county. The recycled water project out to the Coombsville area, as well as Carneros, would not have happened without that partnership between the county and Napa San. We also coordinate closely on sewer replacement and paving projects. Much of Napa San's district is in the city, of course, but some of it is in particularly the county pockets. Back in 2019, Napa San replaced a number of their sewer pipes in the Shetler, Imola area, and we coordinated to pave after their sewer lines were replaced. And coming up in 2026, Napa San is planning on replacing a number of their sewer pipes in the what I call the Pueblo pocket, or the Girl Street area. And again, a lot of that is city, but a good deal of that is county, and we'll be coordinating with them on that as well, so that we do our paving project after their sewer project. So just a big thanks to Andrew and the agency. They've been great partners.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to go, do we have public comment again? Okay. We're going to move to 11D, and this is very exciting, to adopt a resolution of intent to purchase approximately 874 acres of land commonly known as the Skyline Wilderness Park property from the state of California. And Ms. Craig,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you, Chair and Supervisors. Becky Craig, CEO's office. The county has been leasing Skyline Wilderness Park for 45 years. And thankfully to Senator Dodd, about 5 years ago, he was able to successfully get SB 20 to allow the state and county to evaluate and negotiate a potential sale. And we are now at the point where we have a draft purchase sale agreement, we have an appraisal, we have a legal description, and we are asking the board to authorize this intent to proceed. That will then open up 3 weeks of public notices to make the public aware and to get any feedback or interest there, but to come back in 1 month to ask the board to approve the draft purchase and sale agreement or any modifications thereof. This does come with additional burdens on the county. At this moment, we don't have the water rights, and the county, or the state is insistent that we will take over all the obligations regarding the groundwater there, the lakes, the creek, mitigation, and monitoring thereof. So we do not know exactly what those costs are going to incur. The Public Works Director and the Flood District are aware of these obligations, and if the county does proceed with the purchase, we'll be overseeing that information, and we will have to bring back budgetary items in the future to address any additional cost associated with that. We also have an existing agreement that runs contiguous with this with the Skyline Citizens Association, and that actually terminates at the conclusion of the state owning the land. So we will bring back on December 17th also a proposal for them to continue operating, but also looking at the Parks and Open Space District to assist us with the monitoring and oversight of that. So these are many activities that are being looked at by many departments in the county, but we are excited to get to this point. This does not include Camp Coombs. The original legislation did not allow for that consideration. Since then, a Senate bill came forward just this year that does allow Camp Coombs to now be considered, and we will start this process again with the state. They are out soliciting for the surveyor at this time to establish the legal description. We are hopeful that it doesn't take another 2 years like this last one did with the smaller acreage and the known information that has been gathered. But sometime next year, we will then be back with the proposal for Camp Coombs acquisition.
Great, thank you so much. Before we get public comment, is there any questions? Okay, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, anything on the phone? All right, great. I'd like to go ahead and bring it back. And I'd like to, first of all, say thank you, a big thank you to both Supervisor Gregory and former Supervisor Brad Wagenknecht. I know that they both were very passionate about this project and worked very hard for many years. And so a big thank you to both of them. And I did want to allow Supervisor Gregory to speak on this.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. This is really exciting. It's taken a long time, and I'm glad to see it come this far and almost be done before I'm done. What this is about is it's a park that's the crown jewel of the city of Napa, and we don't control it. You know, the state, with only a few years left on our lease, the state could do whatever they wanted after that. So we need to control our own future and make this a county park. That always drove our effort. The other thing is all the little improvements we want to make, they have to fit within this thing that's called the master plan, that is our agreement with the state. Things that don't comply with that master plan, to get them done takes years. Recent examples, the bicycle skills course we just built took 4 years. Some of that was COVID. but it took 4 years to build this simple little amenity that's now used by our middle school bike riders to learn how to mountain bike before they go up on the trail. So it's also about making the improvements we want to make in the park, especially as we start to integrate Susquehanna Headwaters, the new park above it. Can't say too how excited I am about the Camp Coombs. There's a lot more to go on that, but it's this donut hole in the middle of the park that frankly I didn't even know was there for so many years. It's going to offer a lot more space for more amenities at the park. And should the state ever build housing on a little corner of that little area in the flat part, it allows us to replace some of that use in this area called Camp Coombs. So it's important for all those reasons. I just want to say how proud I am of this county, and we should be proud of ourselves for our fiscal discipline to save the money way over the years, knowing this might one day happen, and we have the money to make it happen now that it's coming to fruition. So thanks everybody and staff and all the public who've supported us. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Pedrosa.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I do want to thank staff. You know, this is something that would always come up during budget priority sessions. We'd all talk about it. We'd all say, let's set money aside. And, you know, the registers here, and you can look back at register articles going back to 2018 or 2019 where we're professing this interest. Then the pandemic happened and just illustrated how critical open space is to our community. And I think we doubled down on our interest at that point. So to me, you know, we all could say we wanted to do this, but the constant force, in my opinion, was staff. That was continuing to work with Sacramento on this with Senator Dodd, but also Department of Finance. I remember being on those calls, Becky. And to me, it's that steady, constant presence of our staff being committed to following up on our priorities that made this happen. And sometimes we got to remember patience. In 2019, we wanted to do this, and look, it's 2024. So if we have to wait a couple more months to keep the pressure on, but it's going to happen. And I think that's a message to our community that here we are protecting this asset that's going to be enjoyed by Napa residents for generations to come. And I think that's the discipline that we need to have as we set these priorities. So again, I just want to thank staff for fulfilling this priority that the county had. And the real winners are the Napa residents on this. And I do want to thank Sacramento too, because it's for them, sometimes it's easier to say no, but we found a way to say yes. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you. I think one of the great things that we've been able to accomplish through this, while it seems like the stars just aligned through the purchase of Skyline Park, years of work by our predecessors and wanting to make this happen, and with Supervisor Gregory and Supervisor Wagon-Connect bringing this to the finish line with Ms. Craig. You know, we look at the additional segments that have been added in through the Tudor donation into the to the Ridge Trail. On Friday, the Open Space District received grant money for the acquisition of the Finney Fee acquisition, which also adds to the Ridge Trail. So what we're really looking at is a contiguous area of open space that is going to be available for generations to come. So just kudos to staff for your persistence in making this happen, to our auditor controller for allowing us to write a check, and for hopefully what will be the vision that we have always wanted for Skyline and that Imola corridor to really be that place that is that gem within the Napa proper area. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Cottrell?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that has been said. I just wanted to turn to my colleagues on the board who were here in 2018, 2019 and kept the pressure on, and for staff continuing to work on that, and Senator Dodd and his staff too, because the clock has continued to tick down and he's continued to look for ways to make this happen. And just to Supervisor Gregory's point about the reason we want to do this is for our residents, but also to make the management decisions at the local level. I know working with residents up near Bothay, we have great partners in the state park there, and it just takes a long time. And so we'll be able to do things at a more rapid pace to improve Skyline for residents here. And love the open space point too, and the contiguity of it all. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's get to it then.
I would love to move approval of, or make a motion to adopt the resolution of intent.
Second.
Okay, great. I have a motion by Supervisor Gregory, a second by Supervisor Ramos. All those in favor to adopt a resolution of intent, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. First step, we're all very, very excited. Thank you, Ms. Craig. Okay, before we take a very, very short comfort break, I'd like to move one thing up on the agenda, and that is 13C. Hoping we have planning in the house. This is the Sentinel LLC Inglenook Residence Appeal. This around a continuance, I believe. So, okay. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna open the public hearing, and if we can get a staff, I believe this is a request for a continuance.
Is this on? Okay. Yes, hi. Kelly Cahill with Planning, Building, and Environmental Services. This is a request for continuance. The parties have made a settlement agreement, and it will give staff an opportunity to make the necessary amendments to the conditions of approval that we will bring back to you December 3rd.
Okay, great. I'm going to just read the item into the record. So we are considering moving to continue the public hearing for an appeal filed by Water Audit California to the Napa County Planning Commission's decision on November 15, 2023 to approve a use permit exception to the conservation regulations P2200404UP filed by Adobe Associates Incorporated on behalf of Nippon Coppola Estate Winery LP to allow a private access road to encroach into the creek setback in order to serve existing agricultural structures and a potential future residence. Do I have any public comment on the request for continuance? Anything on the phone? Okay, I'd like to bring that back to the board, and would anyone like to
Make a motion. I'll make a motion to continue to December 3rd, 2024 at 9 a.m.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Ramos, a second by Gregory. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are going to take a 5-minute comfort break, and then we'll come back for our public hearings 13A and B.
going to go ahead and get started. If everyone can please have a seat.
All right, thank you. We are back from our break, and we are going to move to item 13A. This is a public hearing for the introduction and intention to adopt an ordinance adopting modifications to the Napa County Code, Chapter 5.70, and the addition of Chapter 5.8 to reduce the waste and pollution caused by single-use plastic bags and eliminating the use of single-use plastic foodware in the county. So we're going to open the public hearing and hear from staff. Mr. Bordona, Mr. Melendez, thank you so much. Excited to see you here.
Likewise, good morning. I just want to introduce Mr. Melendez. I know most of you either know him or have worked with him. He is very much a rising star in our department, and we are appreciative of all the hard work he's done on this ordinance. Extensive public outreach has occurred over the last year. Since in June of 23, the board directed us to produce this ordinance. So happy to intro Ryan and the ordinance as well. And with that, I'll let Ryan take it away.
Great, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. I am Ryan Melendez, a sustainability planner with PBES, and I'll jump right into introducing this new draft foodware ordinance. In California, packaging makes up over 50% of what ends up in landfills by volume, many of that being plastic. Over 290 Olympic pools worth of plastic is thrown away every day in California. Plastic pollution damages environmental resources, but can also cause serious issues for human and public health. And the state has initiated several bills to target solid waste, and including Assembly Bill 939, which sets targets for reduction in the amount of solid waste generated by county. SB 1383 we've heard a lot about recently, which aims to reduce emissions of short-lived climate pollutants, which contribute to climate change and affect human health. A lot of that deals with organic waste diversion from landfills to reduce methane emissions. SB 54, which shifts a lot of the pollution burden from consumers to the producers, which is in effect now, and sets enforcement goals by 2032, 8 years from now. And AB 1276, which requires all retail food facilities and food delivery platforms to provide single-use foodware, accessories, and condiments upon request only. So there's been a lot of strides in solid waste reduction and plastic reduction at the state level. And while these laws are all working statewide towards reducing solid waste and ensuring organic waste is diverted from landfills, our Napa County General Plan calls for the enactment and enforcement of regulations which maintain or improve the current level of environmental quality found in Napa County, as well as promoting solid waste source reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, and environmentally safe transformation of waste. So, according to Californians Against Waste, 131 cities and counties have adopted ordinances banning polystyrene or styrofoam, with at least 47 jurisdictions also having requirements that takeout foodware be either recyclable or compostable. And just here in the San Francisco Bay Area, many neighboring jurisdictions have adopted similar ordinances to the one presented today, including the city of Berkeley, San Mateo County, Marin County, Sonoma County, and our own neighbor here in Napa Valley, the city of Calistoga. And as Director Bordona mentioned, since December 2023, staff have been developing this draft single-use plastic ban reduction and reusable foodware and waste reduction ordinance. It was introduced to the Napa County Climate Action Committee at the February 2024 meeting, during which members directed staff to incorporate additional measures and clarifications and create a frequently asked questions document to help with understanding these new draft regulations. An FAQ, frequently asked questions document, was created, and both the updated ordinance and FAQ document were posted to the county website in February of 2024. On March 22nd, 2024, at the Climate Action Committee meeting, The CAC members unanimously recommended, 9 of 12 members were present, but they unanimously recommended the draft ordinance for consideration and intention to adopt by each of the member jurisdictions. Additional educational materials were created in collaboration with the county CEO's office and public information officer, including an overview document of the draft ordinance, its goals, key components, benefits, key terms, and resources, including how to find compliant packaging, and a quick guide for ensuring compliance for business owners. And I will jump into some of what the proposed ordinance would aim to accomplish. It would add amendments to Chapter 5.7 of the Napa County Code, adding definitions of compostable, designated business, natural fiber, person, and recyclable to the plastic bag reduction ordinance. It would also redefine reusable bag and single-use plastic bag to align with current state requirements. It would clarify the conditions when a customer may or may not use their own bags when purchasing items from a business. Clarify when a customer may be charged for a reusable or recyclable bag and which purchases are exempt from a fee. Require that pre-checkout bags for carrying items within a facility that may not have yet been purchased be recyclable or compostable, except for specified activities that are exempt. And clarify that enforcement staff may inspect a business or facility to ensure compliance with the ordinance. That's kind of the first facet of the proposed ordinance, is amending that Chapter 5.7 for the plastic bag reduction. The other side of the coin is adding a new chapter, 5.80, to the county code titled Reusable Foodware and Waste Reduction. That would include the following new provisions: providing a new section of definitions, requiring that food vendors provide reusable or compostable foodware and accessories for both on-premises and takeout orders, except where exempted. So reusable for on-site dining only, and certified compostable for takeout orders. It would permit customers to use their own bags, except when damaged or inadequate, and their own foodware to bring in for takeout orders. It would prohibit polystyrene or styrofoam, foodware, and accessories. Require businesses to maintain records of recyclable and compostable foodware for 3 years and to make such records available to enforcement staff upon request. Require 3 waste receptacles, solid waste, recyclables, and organics to be used both in front of house by customers and staff in the back of house where food is sold or prepared. It would require a 25-cent fee be imposed for each disposable cup or container, not to exceed $1 per order. It would prohibit the sale and or distribution of plastic bottled beverages of less than 21 ounces on county property, including lessees, contractors, or event permits. Create a waiver for on-site dining that cannot reasonably provide reusable foodware if they don't have the washing facilities to be able to wash their own reusable foodware. It would exempt items that are made of recyclable glass or aluminum, prepackaged food that is not removed from packaging, repackaging of bulk food into portions for government and charity programs, and when compostable products are not available, when required for health or safety, such as meats, or when visibility of the food product is needed, and items sold in bulk at stores. It would exempt the following polystyrene or styrofoam items from being prohibited: prepackaged food that is not removed from packaging, medical supplies, items enclosed by another material such as surfboards, coolers, life preservers, or others, and stormwater construction materials that comply with county code and are not released to the environment. And it would exempt these provisions during a declared emergency and for any special event permit applications that were deemed complete before the ordinance goes into effect. And the designated enforcement agency would be Napa County Planning, Building, and Environmental Services Department of Code Enforcement Division as the enforcing agency for this ordinance, and would make any violation of this chapter an infraction subject to fines and allow the county to seek other relief as needed to enforce this ordinance. So that was a lot. I will pause there for any clarifying questions on what I just introduced.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone on the board have any clarifying questions? Okay, let's see if we have any public comment on this item. Please come to the podium.
Good morning. Marilyn Knight Mendelson, co-chair of Napa Climate Now. So I'm here to commend the Napa County Board of Supervisors for moving ahead with the strengthening of the plastic bag ban and the adoption of the reusable foodware ordinance as was recommended by the Napa County Climate Action Committee. Requiring reusable and or compostable foodware will enable county residents to make much better use of our local first-rate recycling and composting facilities. Reducing plastic waste also reduces our greenhouse gas emissions, which are produced during the production, transportation, and disposal of this waste. These steps bring us a lot closer to our net zero climate pollution reduction by 2030. We would particularly like to recognize the staff for creating a thoughtful and thorough FAQ sheet and also the educational toolkit, which lists resources for local businesses. And another possible resource is the Restaurants Care Resilience Fund, which awards grants to restaurant owners for equipment upgrades, which includes the very important dishwasher. This source of funding, noted in the June 14 City of Napa News, could be available to restaurants needing to install a dishwasher as they shift to reusable foodware for dine-in situations. Thank you very much for moving forward on the adoption of this important ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I have a short comment. My name is Bob Fagoni, and I'm also with Napa Climate Now. Some of us first introduced the concept of disposable foodware, of a disposable foodware ordinance to Napa Valley elected officials, businesses, and organizations some 4 years ago. So we're gratified that the Board of Supervisors is taking the issue up today. After reviewing the proposed ordinance in its entirety, I can say that we're very pleased with the contents of that it contains all the components necessary for a strong and effective foodware ordinance. Staff is to be commended for the attention they put in and their willingness to listen and examine evidence while building this ordinance. Besides a few corrections that I submitted in writing, I support passage of this ordinance. I'd like to add that any trepidation by businesses regarding this ordinance can be alleviated by education regarding how businesses can actually save money by going reusable and abandoning disposable. Evidence exists of many businesses doing this in other communities that have already adopted ordinances such as the one before you. In these times when it seems that our country is going backwards in the fight against climate change, it's more important than ever to take concrete steps in our community to pass this ordinance. Your leadership will be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Please come forward.
Thank you very much. I'm also with Napa Climate Now, and I was active in the Waste Reduction Committee. We got to a point of having our own little certification. I shouldn't say little, much long labored over and ran to a couple of pages of requirements for restaurants to be certified as climate friendly if they filled many of the, most of the.
Susan, can you just introduce yourself?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Susan Crosby.
Thank you.
I remain Susan Crosby. So just a few personal observations as I went to many restaurants and tried to get them interested in voluntarily joining the fight to push back on plastics. And most places were interested, and a few places were ready. They'd already made all the choices. So I think the regulation is needed in order to animate people to go to those, do the final steps. Restaurant owners as a whole are very stressed out and very busy. So providing the resources for things like getting funding for dishwashers, showing them, showing maybe if we have the regulation, we don't have to do it, but that it is less expensive in the long run. Some of the businesses that I talked to were actually victims of greenwashing, that they bought these containers that had the little green chasing arrows, but they had plastic lining in them. So that's another level of protection to make sure that it's really happening legitimately. I think the reward of some sort to incentivize customers is a very good idea. 25-cent if diminishment in their bill if they bring their own things. Some places already do that. Pete's Coffee, gives you 25 cents off if you bring your own bag. Also, I'd like to see school cafeterias and facilities like the Meadows included in that, and hospitals. Maybe not this round, but soon. And that I think the consumers at all levels are going to be the ones who drive manufacturers to find new solutions and provide more resources. And thank you all. I'm hopeful and I'm moved that our county is working to protect the environment. It's just us and the UN guys. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any others in the room? Anyone on the phone? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I am going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Do I have anything for the board? Yes. Supervisor Cottrell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members of the public who spoke today and staff for working hard on this. And I had a couple of questions because I think there's a general sense of this is moving us in the right direction, and yet I'm also cognizant of what the impact is going to be on our local businesses, particularly small businesses who are running very close to the line already. So those are kind of where some of my questions are. There's the records keeping requirement. So I'm just wondering if we can somehow estimate what that imposition is going to be for restaurants. And then also I'm interested in what you can share, Mr. Melendez, about how it's rolled out in other counties like Sonoma in terms of, I love that there's this plan for the next 12 months to be doing education and support. So if you can just kind of generally sketch out what that's going to look like. I think this list of websites is great, and maybe we could add this Restaurants Care Resilience Fund, and maybe we could talk about as a county if there's a way that we could provide some support there too. So that's kind of the bundle of questions I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to touch on that. As far as the records keeping component of the ordinance, generally there's a 12-month, as we have it written, 12-month lag from when date of adoption to when businesses would have to comply with the new regulation. During that time, we could provide education, outreach, training for the restaurant owners, for staff, and any purchasing teams that they might have, or if it's a small business, we really want to be cognizant of the capacity for their time and staff levels. So being able to open that up front, generally they're going to have receipts of, ideally electronic receipts of single-use plastic, disposable foodware currently, and we can just work with them and educate them directly to ensure that they are keeping those receipts on file or electronic file, so that when it does come time to report those findings, they have those purchase policy or those purchase records. To your question on how this will be rolled out, the outreach efforts up to date have been just to warn of, and kind of alert business owners of this upcoming ordinance for consideration. We've sent out a mailer to 336 businesses. 39 of those were returned undeliverable, but and I had received a few emails from business owners, asking questions or thanking for the resource list that you mentioned. But in general, other jurisdictions have rolled it out between 6 months from adoption to a time of enforcement, up to 18 months. So it's been a similar timeline. I kind of opted for the middle ground there for 12 months. And during that time, we can create a comprehensive educational materials and try to work door to door with those businesses to ensure their compliance. And that 12-month time is also designed to allow them to use down their current supply of foodware, of disposable foodware, and starting to begin to purchase their compostable foodware.
Got it. Thank you. And so that'll be great to get updates from you on how that outreach is going, and hopefully we can use our local news outlets as well to educate people. I think that's most of my questions for right now. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other lights. Mr. Melendez, I would assume just kind of let us know about the collaboration with Napa Waste and Recycling. I think they have a great role to play in education and already have been doing a lot of education in other jurisdictions, so maybe you could speak to that.
Sure, and I'll actually bring up a comment from staff at Napa Recycling and Waste Services, which calls out a couple concerns with the ordinance as it's written. Right now, businesses can apply for a waiver for on-premise dining, dine-in without a specified time limit, and this could potentially lead to indefinite exemptions unless addressed in that language. And the second concern being the current language that also does not explicitly require new businesses to comply with reusable practices for on-site dining. That staff member recommended updating language to include new business regulations. But yes, I believe working with the Napa County Recycling and Waste Services and the Napa Recycling and Waste Services to help coordinate and collaborate on providing educational material will be imperative for full compliance with the ordinance. So I do plan to work closely with staff at those agencies on developing educational materials and also implementing and going into the businesses.
Okay, and just to clarify, so this will be followed by new businesses. I mean, this is
it as
for
it's
everyone.
Yes, I mean as it's currently written, there were concerns from the staff at Napa Recycling and Waste Services that mentioned that businesses can apply for a waiver, that the ordinance language does not explicitly require new businesses to comply. It does not say new businesses, new permits for business licenses would have to comply. It is implied, I believe, but it does not explicitly say, so we can update the language to explicitly mention new businesses and new permits for business licenses be.
Okay. And what about the issue of the specified time limit for the waiver? What are your thoughts there?
I think we can update the language to include a time limit, and we can work with Napa Recycling and Waste Services on what an appropriate time limit is set for those, and deliberate among staff, and then work hands-on with those businesses as well to provide, resources for funding or, some of the other resources available to help them come into compliance so that they wouldn't need a waiver after that specified time.
Right, and the waiver does need to be approved by the director, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It just seems there's lots of ways to get a waiver, I guess, is how I'm reading this. And so I think, making sure that we offer all the resources and we find ways to help people comply is going to be really important. So I'm just looking at the director and he's saying yes. Okay. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you so much. And thank you to first the Napa Climate Now for bringing this to our attention, and to my colleagues who serve on the Climate Action Committee. This is a really great step in the right direction for us to address just really. You drive on the side of the road, and what do you see? You see cups, and you see bags, and you see utensils. And so I think that putting aside the fact that we've got litter bugs, it also allows us to really address how we're going to have a more sustainable path forward. I have two technical questions. They might be for council. The first one is 5.70.047, section C3. And this is, it deals with emergency situations. And the other section is on exemptions, which is 5.80.80B2, also dealing with exemptions in case of an emergency. And it says deemed by the CEO. And so my question here is, if we were to once again have a public health emergency, my understanding of the last go around is that the public health officer acts independently of the CEO in those determinations. It comes for ratification to us. So for a belt and suspenders approach, I'm wondering if it makes sense that it actually say CEO and or public health officer. So if that the public health officer wants to suspend any types of wants to make any changes in regards to reusable materials.
Supervisor Ramos, you're indeed correct about the health officer having independent authorities. I'd have to look at the code on delegations just to double check. Certainly the CEO generally is delegated the first authority to declare an emergency, but that's something we can look at and add if we feel we need to.
Okay, thank you. So it's specifically on 570.047, it's section C3, and on 580.80, it's section B2. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, other emergencies like fires and floods, yes, that would go through our CEO, but if it's a public health emergency, that's my only question, if we want to make sure that we have enough authority there for our public health officer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, just wanted to make sure, Mr. Melendez, that we're doing outreach to all of the chambers and Downtown Association, making sure that we do all of that necessary education so that they can also partner with us in educating to their members. And I did want to call out the link that you provided to Upstream in our toolkit. Very, very useful in helping explain the benefits to businesses. So also I wanted to ask what languages are we going to be translating this into? The toolkit and the FAQs, I'm sorry.
The toolkit, we had an original draft, I believe, that was translated into Spanish, and we can work to do Spanish and Tagalog for those that need those language.
Okay, great, thank you. I mean, we know that it's the restaurant industry especially is very diverse, so we want to make sure that we have all of the materials that are needed in the appropriate languages.
Absolutely, and I'll mention that there was a presentation back in March to the Napa Chamber of Commerce. I don't believe any of the other ones were given a presentation, but we can work on that as well.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you so much. Supervisor Ramos, did you have additional? Yes.
Yes, I would just ask if in preparation of that toolkit, if you would please reach out to the American Canyon Chamber. We do have some food providers that I know are predominantly Punjabi speaking. So if we can, and we also have vendors that come in from Solano County that are Punjabi speaking. So if we could please make sure we have all our bases covered, or at least some sort of a resource, translating resource or training resource. Thank you.
Thanks. And Supervisor Control?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate a thanks to Calistoga, the jurisdiction that has already adopted a reusable foodware ordinance, and encourage us as we move forward to check in with them, because they've gone through a lot of these steps already. So anything we can learn from their experience. And I will say, from talking with the group that was working on that, a huge part of why it's been successful is constant interaction with their local restaurants. And so that's a good model for us to be adopting as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the ordinance adopting modifications to the Napa County Code, Chapter 5.7, and the addition of Chapter 5.8.
Okay,
I'll second that intention to adopt the ordinance.
Okay, great, thank you. Moved by Supervisor Gregory, seconded by Ramos. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. So we will move on, and we will hear back from you when that is completed. Thank you both so much for the presentation and for all the work that you've done on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Okay. We're going to move on to 13B. This is a public hearing regarding the Hess Collection Layer General Plan Amendment, P21-00055, and rezone P24-0221. And Mr. Bordona, is anyone else joining you?
Yeah, Mr. Trippy is going to be giving the presentation. I thought I saw him a minute ago. I'm sorry.
He did. He was in very bright colors this morning, and
It was orange, right?
can't really miss him.
He might be listening in downstairs. I apologize. He's probably on his way.
That's okay. He probably didn't think we were going to move so quickly and efficiently.
I found him.
Okay, we do have a correction memo on this item, so please take a moment to read that. There are copies apparently out in the hall. Yeah, that would be great, Mr. Trippy, if you could do that. I'll give you a second to get organized there.
Sorry about my hasty entrance.
That's okay.
Sean Trippy on behalf of the Planning Division. As part of the Planning Commission resolution, get this up there. So, an attachment B.
Hold on just one second. Please, if you're getting the paper copy, please come in. We're going to have Mr. Trippy actually read the corrections. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Ready? Thank you. On attachment B of the Planning Commission resolution, 24-002-PC, ordinance number 24, the draft ordinance, it's the, like I said, attachment B. On the first page, there's a reference to November 5th. That's been changed to November 12th. And then on the board ordinance, draft ordinance, same date reference on page 1. November 5th is changed to November 12th. And then on that one, on the last page, before the signature blocks is, again, an erroneous reference to November 5th.
Okay, so it's just the date changes.
Just the date change, and on the PC resolution, same thing, 2 references to November 5th on the last 2 pages. And on that one, there's actually a correction to the exhibit. This one had, unfortunately, had the rezone exhibit. I've added the GPA exhibit. Those are the changes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And would you like to go ahead and proceed with
And
the
that concludes my presentation. No.
No.
I have some slides. I don't know if there's a way to click. Oh, there we go. So as you've guessed, the item before you is the Hess Collection Layer General Plan Amendment and Rezone. Today I'll be presenting the draft proposal. There'll be a discussion and staff recommendation. The proposal includes a general plan amendment and a zone change. The property is located at 5750 South Kelly Road. It's comprised of 2 APNs, one owned by Hess Collection and the other owned by Kenneth Laird. The total project site's about 280 acres. This general plan amendment started back in 2021 where it came before the board, and the board directed staff to go ahead and process the request. The board initiated that request by a 5-0 vote. On October 2nd, the Planning Commission heard the item and recommended a 4-0 vote to the project to approve. And again, because this is located within the airport influence area, the request was also heard by the Airport Land Use Commission. They also recommended, they found it consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, also by a 4-0 vote. The applicant is requesting to change the general plan land use designation from AWOS to industrial. This was contemplated in the 2008 general plan. There's several references to this land area for future industrial development. And that's primarily based on the fact that it had been industrial prior to the 2008 general plan. And as such, Measure J or P do not apply, as those would only apply to properties that were AR or AWS as of September 28th, 2007. Associated with the general plan amendment is a zone change to be consistent with the general plan from AWAC to IPAC. There is no development proposed at this time or infrastructure. The zoning would require a use permit for any type of industrial or business park development to come back through the Planning Commission with the appropriate CEQA evaluation. Oh, I went too fast. CEQA. So staff considered an addendum to the 2008 EIR. As mentioned before, this was contemplated in the general plan at that time. There were 2 alternatives, Alternative A and Alternative E, which was the jobs housing balance, that both evaluated this project site as being developed with industrial or business park improvements. Review of the proposed project has concluded that it would not result in new significant impacts or an increase in the severity of any impacts previously identified in the general plan EIR that was certified in 2008. This is further explained in the CEQA memorandum that's attached to the report. None of the conditions described in section 15162 of the CEQA guidelines calling for preparation of a subsequent EIR or mitigated negative declaration have occurred, and thus an addendum is appropriate to satisfy CEQA requirements for this proposal. With that, staff is recommending that the board approve and adopt the addendum to the EIR. This is attachment D based on findings 1 through 5 of attachment C, recommending adopt a resolution to amend the general plan to change the land use designation from AWOS to I, and further to adopt an ordinance to rezone the property from AW:AC to IP:AC. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. Could you keep the slides up, please? Thank you. Can you go back to the slide that has the red?
Oh, sure. This
Yeah,
one here?
yeah. I think it would be really helpful for you to explain that and explain the areas not subject to Measure J. And I know that this is in the context of this larger issue, so I think it would be helpful to the public to understand this
Sure.
map.
Measure J passed in 1990 and was aimed to protect Napa County's agricultural land from urban development. Measure J was extended and enhanced by Measure P, which forwarded the same protections. However, if a property did not have an agricultural land use designation at the time the measures were put in place, the requirements of the measures do not apply, and a parcel or properties can be converted to a new designation without a vote of the people. As is the case with the project site, the property had a designation of industrial prior to September 2007, and therefore did not meet the parameters of Measure J or P. It wasn't until June 3rd, 2008 that the property was redesignated from industrial to agriculture. This was when the general plan was adopted in 2008. And again, since this happened before 2007, or after 2007, excuse me, the project can be redesignated by the Board of Supervisors without a vote of the people. In addition, General Plan Policy Ag Land Use 40 states the property known as Hess Vineyard shall be designated AWS, but shall be considered for redesignation to an industrial designation if Flosden Newell Road is ever extended north of Green Island Road through the property. And in the Planning Commission staff report, there was a right-of-way dedication agreement, a draft between the applicant and the City of American Canyon to extend Newell Drive. So if that is enacted, this would put a road through the southern part of the property, kind of triggering this potential general plan amendment. That road would be through county property, but it would not be, it would be owned by the City of American Canyon, similar to other holdings that they have that are outside their city limits, like their water treatment plant up in Jameson Canyon. So it's kind of a brief history. This map shows all of the areas that would not be subject to a vote. And at the very bottom, you can see this subject site in red down there then. So that's kind of a summary of what we went through back in 2008.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Supervisor Cottrell, do you have?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Trippy. I had a question kind of along the lines of where you're going, is helping us understand more what the thinking was back in 2008. Because when I read this language that's quoted in the October 2nd memorandum that's from the general plan from that time, that says the properties known as the Hess Vineyard shall be designated AWOS, but shall be considered for redesignation to an industrial designation if Flosden/Newell Road is ever extended north of Green Island Road through the property. And so that's, if ever extended, what does that mean? Does it mean we say that it could go here? We say that a right-of-way is in place? I mean, an extension of a road in my mind makes it sound like there's a road there, which we don't have in place at this point. So I'm just trying to figure out what is, if you will, the condition precedent for us to be considering, in the eyes of the 2008 general plan, when is the right moment to be having this potential redesignation?
Well, I'll just sort of give you my opinion. Back in 2008, I believe that although the Pluma, the map that created these areas, was looking at what was actually on the ground at the time, and it tried to match the general plan designation with the use, and in most cases there were agricultural uses at the time. This site, I think at the time, was probably, I know it's been planted in vines in the past, so I think it was just trying to match up the general plan and zoning with kind of existing land uses, but it allowed them to come back later if at some time it made sense to change the designation and rezone the properties. I think you just had one a few weeks ago with Pridmore, similar situation. Although in this case, we're not looking at development. The extension of a road is like anything else. There's a process such as this general plan amendment process where it takes several steps to go through to even come to an agreement for a property owner to have some assurity that that they're getting something in return for their offer. And so I think some of this is they want some assurance that they can develop with some light industrial business park activities as they progress through and build that road, they're not going to just, building a road is very expensive, so I think they wanted some value to their land so that they can move on from there. And as I mentioned, they would have to come back before the county with any kind of development proposal, and it would trigger additional CEQA analysis depending on what the proposed uses are. So, and maybe the applicant can speak to the progress they're making on the extension of Newell Road.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Can the applicant, is the applicant here?
Morning, Chair Gallagher, members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm Clark Morrison. I'm with the Cox Castle Nicholson Law Firm here on behalf of Hess and Laird. We have indeed executed an irrevocable offer dedication for that stretch of roadway, which straddles the southern boundary of the Hess property. That's been signed by us. It's been signed by the city, and it's been recorded, I believe. This happened quite some time ago, and I think there's a copy of it in your packet of materials. So Hess has done everything it can at this point to make sure that roadway comes through when it's time. And so in the meantime, I just want to reflect on that general plan language. This is the county's general plan. And you can interpret that provision either way you want, but the reality is there's nothing in that language that prevents the GPA or rezoning from happening earlier if in fact it's appropriate to do that. That roadway, and in fact the north-south roadway that we propose be a part of our project down the road, those things can happen once we start a legitimate planning process to actually develop a project, presented to the county for consideration. And that's going to require a lot of investment in civil engineering to design the roads. It's going to require a lot of money in SEQA review and a few years of work. It's going to be a complicated project. In order for us to invest that money in the planning process, we need to have some certainty that this land will ultimately be converted to industrial uses as has been reflected in the general plan since 2008. So we're just asking for the county to make that change now. There's no project to be evaluated. Further SEQA review at this point would be premature. It would be completely speculative because we don't know what's going to be proposed there right now. So there is no project being designed. The county's prepared a comprehensive addendum under SEQA. It builds on the fact that the 2008 EIR actually anticipated a couple of different scenarios where the land would be redesignated back to industrial. And so we're just asking that what's been on the books really for 15 years be made a reality right now so that we can take the time and money to invest to actually develop a proposed project, get the north-south roadway dedicated and ultimately built. And in the meantime, the city and the other folks involved in that east-west roadway can do what they need to do to bring it across. But Hess has done everything it can at this point by irrevocably dedicating its real estate before we even have a rezoning. So they've kind of stepped forward in advance of any requirements to do so, and we'd like to see something in return for that so we can justify the continued investment. I don't want to use up all my time, so I'm happy to take further questions now or after public testimony, because I'm sure other people want to speak on this.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I have some lights on. I don't know if they're questions for you, but thank you for being available.
All right, come back up when I need
Thank you so
to.
much. Supervisor Pedrosa.
Thank you, Chair. So I just have some simple questions. So it's not subject to Measure J and Measure P?
Correct.
It was industrial before it was ag?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate staff saving all these projects that have so much history towards the end of our careers here because it's a trip down memory lane. We've been talking about this property for years, and I appreciate the history of it. What I am interested in is the connection of south to north. And I fully understand there is no project at this point in time where the applicant can commit to something, but that's a huge public benefit. So I want to know the opportunities that the county and our public would have to ensure that is part of some development, and when the county would have that opportunity to potentially encumber that request. So can you just walk us through that process?
There's several scenarios on how to move forward with development. In my opinion, the best move forward would to be a comprehensive development plan of the entire acreage with at least major spine roadways like the north-south connector. There would probably likely be some east-west loops or cul-de-sacs off that, maybe even another north-south further to the east that might tie back in. So this would connect up to South Kelly Road. Ideally, I think it would be in the county's best interest possibly to enter into a development agreement with the applicant to get some long-term assurance that these improvements would be made in a timely manner so that we don't get some piecemeal development. There likely also be tentative maps to subdivide the property into maybe more developable pieces of property.
Got it. So just to be clear, Sean, this action today does not prohibit us from having that discussion around what the county interests are around making sure that road dedication happens in the future when they might come back for future development?
Not at all.
Okay.
May I speak to that, Supervisor?
Sure.
When Hess and Laird submitted their original application to get the GPA process going, we submitted a diagram that actually shows that at least conceptual location for the north-south roadway. So we're committed to doing that as part of the development process, and we've indicated that on the record. So I imagine there will be a dedication agreement, there may be a development agreement, and there'll be comprehensive planning of the site. We can't fix the roadway now because we've got to figure out how to deal with the creek constraints. There's some cultural resources on the site. There's the railway to deal with. So it's going to require some detailed planning, but we're committed to doing that and providing that right of way as a part of that project.
Got it. No, I appreciate that public benefit. I think that needs to be necessary as this moves forward. So thank you, Steph.
Thank you. I mistakenly forgot to take disclosures on this. So can we just go down the row? Supervisor Ramos, can you start, please?
I have no Living Act disclosures.
I have no Living Act disclosures. I have spoken with Terry McGrath, who is a neighboring parcel owner on the project.
I don't have any disclosures in regular disclosures or Living Act disclosures.
No Living Act. I spoke with Tim Person from Hess Person a couple days ago.
No disclosures, didn't meet with Tim.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yes.
I do have disclosures. I spoke with Terry McGrath, and I've spoken with representatives of the parcels. I have also spoken with the City of American Canyon, their city manager on this property.
Okay, thank you so much. And sorry for that. And Supervisor Ramos, you're up next.
Thank you so much. Mr. Morrison, this one's for you. I would like you to please explain what cannot happen moving forward if you don't get this zoning change.
I'm sorry, ask the question again?
What can't happen? You want the zoning change. You said you need the zoning change to be able to move forward. What cannot happen if you don't get the zoning change?
Well, then we're not quite sure where we stand with the county and how we invest the millions of dollars it's going to take to do the engineering, do the planning, and all of the rest. So we need some certainty for the future, and this will lay the groundwork for those investments, including the delivery of the north-south roadway.
From a financing perspective, if you're looking at investments on this, how does zoning play into that? I'm not a developer, so.
Yeah, it makes it easier to get financing to do all that work, because anybody who's going to put their money in the project is going to want some certainty that the basic policy shift has been made based on that 2008 general plan. So it allows money to come into the project and allows consultants and lawyers to be paid to move it through.
The next one would be, or maybe you, to go ask your clients. Mr. Trippy had mentioned, a comprehensive development plan. In my eyes, when I look at the public benefit, to my colleague's point, this is a very integral part of connectivity in the South County. If there's a road, if there's a road promised, it needs to be built. So from an accountability standpoint, we certainly don't have the ability here to add conditions of approval for you. If we could, I most certainly would. So from our end, this is either going to be looking like conditions of approval on a roadway or development agreement. Is there any objection to moving forward, contemplating that into the future?
No, we fully expect those things would happen, and I think that was discussed even at the point of the original authorization to move forward with this GPA.
Okay.
All right.
And then just for staff, given the 2008 general plan, it had a programmatic EIR, correct? And that EIR, can you speak to the anticipation of this property within that EIR, please?
Sure. And Mr. Tripp, you can plug any gaps that I may leave. That under alternatives A and E in the 2008 general plan contemplated this very day, if you will. At that time, the project parcel was zone industrial. It was converted to ag to reflect the actual existing condition, but gave the property owner the ability to bring it back to industrial if they chose to at a later date. So from a baseline perspective, going back to 2008, we went from industrial, we netted 288 acres of ag, and now we're bringing it back down to industrial. So there's, I guess, if you want to look at it from that perspective, there's no net loss of ag land here relative to the conditions that existed in 2008. The impacts associated with going back to industrial were contemplated as detailed in the 101-page addendum under alternatives A and E, if I got those right.
Thank you. And so the scope of that programmatic EIR only encompassed the zoning change from its current back to the original of 2008, but any actual project would have its own environmental analysis, whether it's CEQA or an NMD.
That's right. I think it's speculated on the number of jobs and population growth and things of that nature, but super speculative. I would fully anticipate a project of this nature to be subject to an EIR. It's premature for me to say that. Nonetheless, in my experience, it would. An initial study will need to be prepared to formally to make that determination, but a project of this scale, like Mr. Trippi had mentioned earlier, in my opinion, would be appropriate to be master plan for the entirety of this site, identifying land uses within the entirety of the site rather than a piecemeal perspective, so that things couldn't get chipped away at. Mr. Morrison mentioned that there were archaeological sensitivities. There's a creek in the southeastern portion of the property that has biological sensitivities. There's also Swainson Hawk in the area that will definitely need to be considered. What that analysis looks like and the result of it, of course, will be premature, but all of those things will be considered in the context of an EIR.
Thank you. And if in fact we move forward with a development agreement, it is the terms of those development agreement that would then inform the EIR, correct? So the development agreement first to inform the scope of the EIR.
Correct. Those would be baked in as a component of the project description. So whether it's a road, a fire station, anything along those lines that would represent a public benefit, we would incorporate those in.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd like to see if there is public comment on this item. Please come forward.
Good morning, Chair Gallagher, members of the board. I'm Terrence McGrath. I am a resident of Napa County, and I'm here today wearing multiple hats. I'm the owner-developer of Watson Ranch. I'm the owner-developer of the Ruins, and I'm also the owner of the Paoli property, which is the property that borders the southern edge of the Hess Vineyards. It's 35 acres. So that's why I've got a hat on. So first I want to say I'm not opposed to this project ultimately being developed. I'm not here today opposing this project. What I am here today, a couple of things. I'm opposed to the process. You got the cart before the horse. I think I'm the only person in this room that was there in 2006, 2007, 2008. The other person that was right with me side by side during that process was Senator Bill Dodd, who was Supervisor Dodd at the time. And we ended up, the city of American Canyon, County of Napa, myself formed a tri-party agreement. And the purpose was to settle land use issues between the city and county. My responsibility was to put in place an urban limit line, which I ran myself, got it approved, it got adopted ministerially in August, September of '08. And then the county and city each had their respective roles as part of this tri-party agreement. 2 by 2, city council members, 2 supervisors, so on and so forth. What came out of this, as staff has alluded to, was this land trade. And I actually was the author of the Great Weight Strategy, which helped resolve these ongoing land use struggles between the city and county. And everything staff has said is true about taking it from an industrial to an ag zoning. That allowed us to trade land that was ag within Watson Ranch and ultimately get that rezoned. But I want to go back and I do want to read, and it's already been articulated, but I wanted to read it again for all of you. The properties known as Hess Vineyards shall be designated ag watershed open space, but shall be considered for redesignation to an industrial designation if Newell Drive is ever extended north of Green Island Road through the property. Doesn't talk about right-of-ways. I've given all the right-of-ways south of there that I control for Paoli and for Watson Ranch. So that's 2 miles, it's almost 10,000 linear feet. And the city and myself control all of that land with the exception of a small piece. The condition precedents are that Newell Drive actually has to be built to and on the property. Not about extending it past that, which the applicant's talking about, these dedications. That is putting the cart in front of the horse. And so the question here is, why am I here? What's the rush behind this from the applicant's perspective? If that roadway isn't there, then you don't have a project. And so what's the rush? It feels very premature. So why am I here? I am here. I started this project almost 20 years ago in American Canyon. And as some of you have been on the project, I think most of the supervisors have all been on the project at various times. Living proof of it, it's there. We have 550 residents living in the 185 units of affordable, which is incredible. State mandated $60 million project. We also have 500 single-family lots that have been built, and about 300 homes have been built on top of those lots and sold. So why am I here? I'm here to see if I can get the city and county to come together and figure out how Newell gets built and how it gets paid for. And I think at that moment, then you can start the process of figuring out what you're going to do with Hess Vineyards to the north. Again, I'm not opposed to it, but that project, if staff has their way and this gets approved, that project could be developed. And you do not have the regional transportation benefits of Newell from American Canyon Road all the way up to Highway 12. So again, this language in the specific plan, Dodd and I were the authors of that. And it doesn't say ROWs, it says a road is built. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Good morning. My name is Eve Kahn. I stand here today with a very specific intent and perspective of good governance. There are many others here who could discuss a variety of concerns about the Hess-Laird parcel, and you just heard some very interesting ones from Mr. McGrath. When I first looked at this board agenda on Thursday, I quickly realized something was missing. All the background information that was presented to and instrumental in the Planning Commission's decision was missing. This was attachment H, which included 7 pages from the general plan update. I sent an email to the board. I had the clerk confirm that that was sent. The history of the parcel zoning began with the 2004 general plan update and was certified in 2008. I clearly remember some, obviously not all the discussions, and even mentioned this parcel to Ryan Alsop in one of our early meetings because I knew this was going to be controversial. But getting back to the timeline, on Friday, I quickly sent an email to the clerk attaching this. Mr. Trippi initially said he had included a link to the board agenda, but ultimately attached 101 pages. 101 pages to this project. It was Saturday on a 3-day holiday weekend. I've been in this room many times when appeals are on the agenda and applicant brings new information. But this is a general plan. The general plan is our county's constitution. You legally have an obligation to read and understand. If you raised your hand and tell me you read all 101 pages, I would love that. I can tell you I didn't have the time to do that yet. So may I suggest that you continue this hearing, let people come up and speak, but delay your votes until everybody, you specifically, and the public have an opportunity to read and understand that 101. And I'm not even sure why the Planning Commission only had 7 pages, but you got all 101. So it's kind of difficult to read through that and understand which in that 101 affects this project, which would be really nice to have. So that's all I really want to pass along to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan.
I am Scott Thomason, and I live in American Canyon, and I'm a retired educator, and I serve on the Sierra Club Napa Group Executive Committee. One of my colleagues is here also. I'm here to respond today to the proposed resolution that's been discussed, amending the Napa County General Plan to change the land use designation of the Hess-Laird property from agriculture, watershed, and open space, which we've heard, to industrial, which the Napa Group opposes. This would entail altering the general plan to accommodate the proposed industrial project, which we also oppose. The Board of Supervisors is being asked to accept the 2008 General Plan Environmental Impact Report as sufficient evidence that this change would not have any potential significant environmental impact. It is astonishing to me and my fellow executive committee members that anyone in approving this change would rely on an EIR that is now 16 years old. Consider this analogy. If you or I were about to buy a house in Napa County, would we base our decision on a 16-year-old inspection report? Certainly not. We would expect and require a new inspection to assess the current condition of the property. The same principle should apply to the Hess Collection Laird General Plan Amendment and zoning redesignation. Critical questions must be answered. Does this property currently support significant wildlife or habitat? If so, what species are present and in what numbers? Relying on a 16-year-old EIR fails to justify such a large-scale redesignation without fully updating and assessing the current state of wildlife and environmental impact that would accompany a shift from agricultural to industrial use. In light of the rapid effects of climate change, any EIR older than 5 years is outdated and irrelevant to new development proposals. And the same holds true for the county's general plan created in 2008 and 2009. Our greatest concern is the request for the Board of Supervisors to amend the general plan and redesignate areas currently designated as open space to industrial, all without allowing the public a direct vote on this decision or input. We respectfully request that the Board of Supervisors table the Hess-Laird resolution and delay further consideration of this proposal until a new comprehensive environmental impact report is completed and made available for public review. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Yes, please come forward.
Good morning. I'm Bill Ross. I'm the city attorney for American Canyon. Chair Gallagher, board members, Supervisor Ramos have been authorized by a majority of the council to make 3 points. One, the city is in a possession of a dedicated right-of-way for the Newell extension dated March 29, 2023. The city is contractually bound to fund 1/2 of the Newell extension, and that multiple councils have made this a city priority for the extension to take place. Those are the 3 representations. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Baginski. I'm a resident of Napa County. I've been before you many times, always advocating for habitat conservation and concern for wildlife. I also spent a lot of time in American Canyon advocating in front of their city council. And one of the things that I'd like to recognize is a term I have often heard recently, and that is the term is falsifying truth. And how do we go about falsifying truth, especially when it comes to the environmental impact reports and the biological resource assessments that we're seeing on these properties? I read them, I review them. And one of the things that concerns me is once a property gets zoned industrial, everybody says, well, it's already zoned industrial. And then they subdivide the property into parcels, and each parcel then gets a development overview. And whether or not an EIR is for that particular piece is determined by the size of the piece, I guess. My point being that those EIRs are so not congruent with each other, and the animals that they say do not exist on this particular parcel but exist on the parcel next door, it becomes very confusing. I agree. I believe that this Board of Supervisors should continue this decision until we have a very good idea of what's actually living on this property, whether there is critical habitat, there is a creek, there is wildlife, there are archaeological. That's what we should be doing first, and then deciding what portion of this property should be zoned industrial, and maybe even consider zoning a part of this giving a part of this parcel a conservation easement, and saying, you know, we're only going to do 2/3 of this parcel. We'll do the road all the way through, but 1/3 of this parcel is going to be set aside for wildlife habitat. That's a different way of doing this, but it's the way of actually protecting the animals, because, you know, the truth is, I'm down there, those lands are being developed so fast and they're being zoned so quickly, and those for sale signs are everywhere. Those animals have absolutely no place left to go. And, you know, once the quality of life for the animals goes, we're not far behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Anyone on the phone? Yes, okay, thank you.
Excuse me. First caller is Skylar.
Board of
Skylar?
Supervisors, thank you for taking your time to speak with me this morning. My name is Skylar Sanders, and I'm with the law firm Parsons, Bailey, and Latimer here this morning on behalf of Mr. McGrath. And I want to echo many of the things that have been already raised this morning, but want to focus on one matter that comes up in review of attachment D to today's package, which is the addendum to the 2008 General Plan EIR and its associated October 2nd, 2024 memorandum from Mr. Trippi to the Planning Commission. Pages 3 to 4 of the memo do a decent job of outlining when additional CEQA review is required, even when you have a program EIR like the one here. And in particular, the first two bullet points focus in on when there have been substantial changes which weren't originally contemplated when the program EIR was passed. So how is that language applicable here today? Going back to the language that's already been referenced by Supervisor Cottrell and Mr. McGrath, it appears that there was a condition precedent placed on the redesignation of the Hess Vineyard property from agricultural, watershed, and open space to industrial. So why is that important? As the first paragraph of page 3 of the memo acknowledges, quote, in analyzing environmental impacts, alternative E and the industrial land use study assumed that industrial development would include road and infrastructure improvements and further considered the potential extension of the Fulsden Newell Road north of Green Island Road extension. In other words, part of the analysis in measuring the impacts that a potential rezoning would have were the utilities and traffic impacts associated with that Newell Road extension. As multiple people have pointed out, Newell Road has not yet been extended north of Green Island Road to the Hess Vineyard property. Thus, while the 2008 General Plan update and associated policy may have considered the designation of the Hess Vineyard to an industrial use, such consideration was predicated upon that extension and it was not contemplated about what happens if Newell Drive was not extended. Thus, the impacts of having no extended Newell Road were not previously analyzed and potentially represent a substantial change in the existing CEQA document requiring additional review. So where does that leave us today? I think everyone from Mr. Trippi to the Hess Laird's legal counsel, to others have represented that perhaps the best way to do this would be to negotiate a development agreement that can capture everything that needs to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else here or on the phone? Oh, you do have one more. Sorry. Yes.
Our next caller is Alan. Alan, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Yes.
Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. This is Alan Delario.
Can you mute your background noise,
Chuck.
sir?
Some of you know me as Chuck. I've turned off the webinar so we don't have a background.
Thank you.
What I had to say, I outlined in an email to you early this morning. I would share the comments I've heard previously. Most of my thunder has been stolen. But I think it's important that you consider, why is there a rush to do this? And there are lots of reasons not to do it now. A zoning change is a project within the meaning of CEQA, and the addendum identifies that there are significant adverse effects on the environment that can't be avoided by this project. And so in order to proceed and to have the public input that's necessary, and this is the difference between an addendum and an EIR, is that there's no public comment, it's not circulated for the public. And with no project on the table, there shouldn't be a rush to get this approved right now. And to do so, I think, subjects the county to possible litigation exposure, which it had when it did the airport EIR, the airport project back in the late 90s, resulted in a published appellate opinion that ruled against the county at that time. I would urge you to step quietly and step carefully. You have the discretion, even if it's not strictly mandated by CEQA, to request an EIR before making this project approval. So with that, and since my prior speakers have captured the essence of what I have to say, I would urge that you, at a minimum, continue this further so that you can consider more carefully the 100-page memorandum that was just released, and consider more carefully when the board is reseated after the first of the year with the new supervisors, that this project may or may not require the IR at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, I am going to close the public hearing. I'm going to bring it back to the board. To start, I am uncomfortable with not really understanding where we are around this idea of a right-of-way being entered into with the city of American Canyon versus Newell Road actually built to and on the property before the change in zoning. I want to hear more from staff, or maybe we need to hear from county council. I'm not feeling particularly sanguine about the way the language is being interpreted.
County council may want to add to this, but I believe the board has the discretion to interpret the policy, since it is the county general plan policy, in a manner consistent with how it's been interpreted by staff and the applicant. And that is that there's an agreement to, in fact, build the road. But then you could also take the position that I suppose it physically needs to be present. I don't know who's going to put it there, how it's going to get paid for, but that's the, I guess, the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of interpreting that language. So it's within your discretion to go either way.
Supervisor Cottrell.
Yeah, just on that point, I agree with staff that we have the discretion to make the choice either way. We could also make the choice to say the board in 2008, we disagree with what they wanted to do, and we want to do something different. What I would like to do is spend more time understanding the circumstances back in 2008. We've heard different scenarios about what was anticipated or planned for, and I don't think we have all the information. I don't feel like I have all the information about that time. I'll just go ahead and make a couple other comments. I really hear what Mr. Morrison is saying, is that your clients need some financial, you need some certainty that the county is looking favorably upon something here before moving forward. I also think the county wants certainty about, to Supervisor Spadozza's point, is that we need some public benefit with this extension of Newell. So, in general, this concept of a development agreement where more things could be fleshed out, the parties could work together, is something that appeals to me. I will say, to the point about the timing on all of this, is someone referenced Pridmore. In Pridmore, we did all the zone changes and the general plan changes in one fell swoop. So that is a possible plan too. So those are just some of my comments at this point.
Okay, Supervisor Gregory.
I think there's some confusion around what Mr. Ross, City of American Canyon city attorney, said. The right-of-way that's been dedicated, I believe, runs along the south of the Hess property out to Green Island Road, and cities agreed to pay for half of that. Do I have that right, Mr. Trippy? Okay, so that, for me, that's irrelevant, because that's not what we're after. We're after a Newell extension north to South Kelly. I think that was causing some confusion. My support for the project when we initiated it in 2021, and by the way, Mr. Delario, that's why this board would like to finish it. We initiated it years ago, was to get Newell extended as fast as we could. That's what I was interested in. Fully understand the Hess and Laird's interest in having zoning before they invest the money to do so. It's a sound approach from a developer. So I think we're in this chicken and egg problem. What's the best chance of getting Newell extended? It either, I think this developer either gets zoning to proceed in investing, and that we make sure through a DA or other means that the road gets built as part of it, or they don't get zoning, they probably sit back and this becomes a really expensive capital project that sits on our list somewhere, and we might get to it one day. So for me, I believe the former scenario is the one that's going to produce Newell the fastest. So my support for this will remain. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair Gallagher, I'd like to respond to some of the other witnesses' statements, if I might.
Actually, let me get through this, and then if those questions come through the board to you, then we'll be doing it like that.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you. I want to address some of the concerns that were raised in public comment. Absolutely, there should be environmental work to determine what areas need to be conserved. But that doesn't happen through a zoning process. A zoning process like this doesn't ever have that level of detail that a project would. It would be at a mere programmatic level of what would be anticipated, which is in fact what we have already at this time. One of the things that when we started this, I think the formal action was 2001, but if memory serves me right, we did this, we started 2018, I believe it was, when we first started looking at having these discussions. And these discussions have also involved the city of American Canyon. They involved the fire protection district. And for a little a reference for my colleagues and for others, I was born at the Queen. I lived here. I moved away, and I came back to American Canyon, and I was buying a house in 2005 in a development called Vintage Ranch. And when you walk into the sales office, there was a map. It was an aerial map of American Canyon where the Vintage Ranch area was. It had where the elementary school was going to be, now Canyon Oaks. And then it had a drawing on it on where Newell Drive was going to be extended up to South Kelly. It had the Paoli connector onto Highway 29, and it had South Kelly. And that was in 2005. It's 2024. And when we look at the need for connectivity in the South County, I'll remind everyone, it wasn't until 2020 that we had an alternative route through Devlin for the South County. Some of my colleagues may recall the time that I came furious to the board because it took me 3.5 hours to get to work because Highway 29 was flooded, and put a pin in that because I'm going to get back to you on what I expect on 29 and its protections. But it took me 3.5 hours, and I had to go south on 29, get to Highway 80, and come through, cross over on then Red Top Road that would allow you turn onto Highway 12, and then come up to Napa to get my kids to school and to come to work. When I live 14.2 miles from the county seat, that is absolutely unacceptable. It's unacceptable for all of our employees that reside in American Canyon and beyond. I think we have I also have just that that personal understanding of agriculture, because I know that is also has been a concern here. I personally know how hard it is to farm these lands in American Canyon. I drive the tractor with my dad in the hill. I'm there on the nights that are picking, and if it weren't because of all the free labor he gets from his offspring, I'm not sure my dad would actually turn a profit up there on that vineyard. When we look at really what this is going to be envisioned, that remains to be seen. And I really hope that my hope in this, I will be supportive of this zone change going forward so that I can see the plan. I am absolutely expecting a development agreement that is consistent with what we expect and what is considered progress and reflective of the South County, understanding that open space is important. I do have concerns about the water that runs off through here and that affects the subsidence of Highway 29. And again, looking at the at public safety access, I think that it is incredibly important for those matters to be addressed in whatever project comes forward, and to ensure that this does happen effectively and holistically. I do believe that for a future board, development agreement is going to be the right way. So I will be supportive of this process going forward at this time, fully understanding this is simply a zone change. There is no project before us, can't condition a road. But that we will have further environmental before us for our consideration at a later date.
Thank you. Supervisor Cottrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You had mentioned that if we heard questions from the audience that we perhaps were looking for the applicant to respond to. I think a piece that, and I appreciate what Supervisor Ramos is mentioning, that they're understanding the need for continued valuation of open space, and that some of that comments we've heard from the public about habitat. I would love to hear from the applicant about that. And also, again, this idea of a development agreement makes a lot of sense. I appreciate what the supervisors who've been here and lived through it, Supervisor Gregory, your point about, you've initiated this back in 2021. That's meaningful to me. So yeah, to be able to hear from the applicant something about a willingness to participate in the development agreement and understand some of the priorities that the board will have for that agreement would be great.
Great, thank you. Would the developer's attorney like to respond? Thank you.
I would love to. We do anticipate a comprehensive planning process, which would have one CEQA document that goes along with it, as staff suggested here. There won't be any piecemealing. It has to be evaluated in one comprehensive way. It's going to require some planning first, but we do anticipate an EIR. We support an EIR to make sure there's a thorough evaluation of all the consequences of the project, be they biological, be they archaeological, be it drainage or transportation. All of these things will be part of that EIR, and we're completely supportive of that. And we are supportive of doing a development agreement that would basically assure that both the east-west as it applies to our property and the north-south get done. And there is some confusion here about whether we're talking east-west or the north-south. We've already dedicated the east-west on our property. We anticipate there's going to be a dedication in the north-south, but we can't know where or how until we actually get into a planning process. And we're fully supportive of all those things. I find it a little ironic that the two other lawyers that have appeared today say this is a rush job. I don't think there's anything about a rush here. We've been waiting 3 years just to get to this point, and 15, 20 years total. So we'll be patient. We'd like to get the rezoning and GPA done and then sit down, roll up our sleeves, and do what needs to be done on all of these issues.
Thank you, and I am remiss for not reopening the public hearing, so I'm doing that now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Tim Passon. I represent one of the properties that we're discussing here today. I just wanted to come up and respond to what you'd asked, which is to give you a confirmation that we are thoroughly committed to a development agreement. We've played ball, I feel, on this all the way through from 2008. This was industrial property, or zoned industrial and got rezoned agriculture. We heard from a developer who spoke about how he was actually directly involved in conversations from which he benefited as part of the horse trading, to use his phrase. We did not benefit from that and obviously lost value. My father-in-law was a very good businessman. He would not have agreed to that type of loss of value without understanding that it was temporary in nature. We have, since 2018, spent over $500,000 just in discussions and process to get to here. So we've spent a lot of money and we're committed. We've given commitments verbal, and happy to do them in writing, around the commitment to a traffic solution north to south. We operate a reasonably large business in this county. Increasingly, a majority of the people that work for our business cannot afford to live in the county and have to commute at great lengths through that American Canyon bottleneck. I want to see a traffic solution for them. I think the mandate that we have, and we hear very publicly over and over again from the public, is to sort out traffic and sort out housing. There have been comments about the ag concerns. We've spoken to that in Measure J and P. I think to expand the agricultural envelope beyond what it was in 2008 is to do so without a public mandate. And as to the conversations around timing, in order to develop a road through the property, the east-west road that was planned as part of the Watson Ranch project was planned without any consultation with us, I might add. I learnt about it when I saw the approved plan. But in order to build that road through our land, one needs consent and one also needs funding. We are asking for this step, a first step, which gives us some certainty about the bedrock or the framework against which we can develop plans and come back to you. It does nothing to erode your control or your ability to check and balance and to make sure that we do all the right things from the environmental concerns, from the green space that you spoke about, and that we uphold our bargains on the traffic as part of it. But we do need that certainty. To speak to one of the earlier questions, if you're trying to raise funding for these types of conversations against a backdrop of ag land versus a backdrop of industrial, those are quite different funding conversations. Lastly, with regards some of the land which has got some historic remnants, we have never farmed or disturbed those areas when we did farm it as agriculture. So we've respected that, we've respected the creek. I feel that we've been good partners all along, and we intend to be going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Chair,
Yes.
I would make a motion to approve the zoning change as recommended by staff, with incorporating all our comments to the property owners of what we expect of something going forward, and the commitments to this county, specifically the South County area.
Okay, I'm going to read this out. So I have a motion from Supervisor Ramos and a second from Supervisor Pedroza to adopt an addendum to the 2008 General Plan Environmental Impact Report, adopt the proposed resolution, and adopt the proposed ordinance. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. And can I have a roll call vote, please?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure. Supervisor Cottrell.
Thank you. Yeah, I first of all, I think this has been a good discussion. I think I know a lot more about the project than I did walking in today. I really appreciate Ms. Kahn's point about making sure that we have all the information we need ahead of time. So I think that's a good something moving forward, that we have a solid sense of background here, and appreciate hearing from the applicants. So I will, continue to want to watch for much of what we talked about today. Thank you for articulating that, and I look forward to how we can, as a board and a county, be in a partnership to develop a development agreement without unnecessary delays, and because there's a lot of public benefit for the community as well there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Hoskins, can you do that, please?
Sure. Roll call vote. Vice Chair Cottrell?
Aye.
Supervisor Ramos? Aye. Supervisor Pedrosa? Aye. Supervisor Gregory?
Aye.
Chair Gallagher?
Aye. All right, thank you. Okay. All right, we are now going to adjourn to our closed session. That will be 14A, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Chief Probation Officer. Thank you.
share whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, and welcome back. We are finished with our closed session, and County Council, can you please report out?
Yes, the board met today on item 14A in closed session, public employee performance evaluation regarding the chief probation officer. No reportable action was taken. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. We will now adjourn to the Board of Supervisors regular meeting on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 at 9 a.m. Thank you.